The Cleveland Browns didn't just make a mistake, they made a statement. And that statement? Shedeur Sanders isn't their guy. At least, not if you ask the team's owner. In a moment that lit social media on fire and had Coach Prime practically ready to lace up his cleats again, Browns owner Jimmy Haslam casually threw shade on one of the most promising young quarterbacks in football and didn't even flinch. What followed? A verbal flamethrower from Deion Sanders himself. Not just as a father, but as a man who's been underestimated and over-delivered his entire life. Because this wasn't just about football. This was about respect. This was about narrative. And this was about the NFL doing what it's always done, doubting greatness when it doesn't fit their mold. How does a kid with elite stats, next-level poise, and NFL DNA get treated like a walk-on? And why is a fifth-round pick causing this much fear in an NFL front office? Because Shedeur Sanders doesn't play by the rules, and neither does his father. This isn't just a controversy, it's a cultural moment. And what Deion said next? It didn't just defend his son, it exposed an entire system. What you're about to hear will change the way you see the NFL forever. When the Cleveland Browns drafted Shedeur Sanders, it looked like a win for both sides. A team in need of a long-term quarterback solution and a young NFL-ready star with swagger, IQ, and a chip on his shoulder. But just days into camp, the cracks started to show, and they weren't on Shedeur's end. Instead of embracing the rookie, the Browns seemed hesitant, confused, even cold. Reports surfaced that Shedeur wasn't getting the reps he deserved, with some insiders calling it intentional sidelining. Then came the dagger. Browns owner Jimmy Haslam publicly downplayed Sanders' role, saying he'd need to learn his place and earn his keep. No confidence, no support, just a warning. For many, this was more than just tough love. It looked like sabotage, especially considering Sanders' performance in training camp was turning heads. His accuracy, leadership, and composure had even veterans nodding. So why hold him back? Some think it's politics. Others say it's pride. But what's clear is this: the Browns had a diamond, and they treated it like glass. But if they thought Shedeur would stay quiet, they forgot who raised him. And Deion Sanders? He wasn't about to let this slide. Deion Sanders is no stranger to criticism. He's battled doubters his whole career, as a player, as a coach, and now as a father. But when Jimmy Haslam subtly dismissed Shedeur's value, Coach Prime didn't just clap back. He detonated. In a viral postgame interview, Deion didn't name names. He didn't have to. His message was sharp, raw, and loud. If you don't know what you have, that's on you, not him. Social media exploded. NFL players, college stars, and even analysts backed him up. Deion wasn't just defending his son. He was calling out an entire system that still struggles to recognize black quarterbacks unless they play by a certain script. Calm, humble, submissive. But Shedeur, he's got fire in his chest and legacy in his blood. And Deion made it clear, that fire won't be dimmed by politics, outdated coaching mentalities, or fragile egos in front offices. This wasn't just a father-son moment. It was a warning shot. One that let the NFL know, if you try to bury Shedeur, make sure you don't miss. Because Coach Prime will dig him right back up and put you in the dirt. But if you think this ends here, you're not even close. Up next, the inside whisk-deuce from Browns camp that proved this was never just about football. Behind closed doors, something strange was happening at Browns training camp. According to team insiders, coaches were giving Shedeur reps with the third-string offense. Not because of poor performance, but to keep him from standing out. One anonymous scout reportedly said they didn't want him to outshine the vets. It's that simple. Let that sink in. Instead of building around a young, hungry QB, the Browns appeared to be protecting egos. multiple players noticed the shift. One veteran was overheard telling a teammate, "This kid's got it. Why are they messing with him?" But anyone who spoke up got silence, or worse, got benched. Even local media was split. Some labeled Shadur cocky, a word rarely used when other rookies show confidence. Others suggested he was only there because of his father. But the film didn't lie. Shadur was threading passes, commanding the huddle, and making decisions like a 5-year vet. So why downplay him? Why bury his progress? Some say the Browns never wanted Shadur to succeed. They wanted him humbled, controlled, and most importantly, quiet. But the Sanders family doesn't do quiet. And the louder Shadur got, the more things behind the scenes started to crack. Once the whispers from camp leaked out, the media storm hit full force. But instead of defending Shedeur Sanders, many outlets turned on him. ESPN analysts questioned his maturity. Talk shows ran with headlines like, "Is Shadur overhyped?" And on one Cleveland sports radio station, a host boldly claimed he's more influencer than quarterback. But it wasn't just criticism, it was personal. Shedur's social media posts were dissected. His watch flex, a topic for debate. His confidence, branded arrogance. The same traits praised in other young QBs suddenly became red flags when it came to Sanders. Deion wasn't having it. He called out the double standard in multiple interviews. "You don't like the way he walks? Maybe you should learn how to follow." His words went viral, again. But this time, something had shifted. The media was pushing back harder. Why? Because the narrative had already been set. Shadur wasn't the Browns' future. He was a problem. And once the machine decides you're the villain, everything you do just adds fuel to the fire. But here's the twist. Shadur didn't back down. He fought back. And when he did, he turned the locker room upside down. Inside the Browns facility, the tension was unmistakable. Publicly, the team played it cool. But behind the scenes, players were choosing sides. Some veterans stood by the coaches, echoing the media's doubts. But a younger wave, rookies, backups, and practice squad guys, started gravitating toward Shadur. They'd seen what he was doing in camp. The precision, the leadership, the work ethic. One second-year wide receiver was caught telling a reporter off the record, "He's the only one pushing us to be better. No politics, just ball." But support came at a price. Players seen working out with Shadur got fewer reps. Some were even left off media sessions. One insider claimed it was an unspoken rule: keep your distance or deal with the consequences. Still, Shadur didn't budge. He kept leading drills after practice, kept mentoring younger players, kept acting like the starting QB, even if the depth chart said otherwise. And Deion, he saw what was happening. "You can't silence a leader," he said in a cryptic tweet. That's when things started to shift, not from the top down, but from the locker room up. It all came to a head after one scrimmage against the Panthers. Shadur had outperformed the starters in live reps again. Multiple reporters noted his poise, accuracy, and command of the offense. But when the post-practice depth chart was released, his name was still buried. That's when Deion Sanders lost it. He took to social media with a firestorm of posts, calling out what he saw as blatant sabotage. "This isn't about talent, it's about control," he wrote. Then came the interview on national TV, where he didn't hold back. If his last name wasn't Sanders, y'all would be calling him the next Joe Burrow. The internet exploded. Fans were divided. Analysts scrambled. And suddenly, the Browns front office found themselves on defense. Was Deion being an overprotective father? Or was he exposing something real? A franchise playing politics while their most promising quarterback was being buried. Even former players chimed in. One NFL Hall of Famer tweeted, "Shadur ain't the problem. He's the threat." By this point, the controversy was bigger than football. It was about power, perception, and pride. And just when it felt like things couldn't get any more explosive, the Browns made a call that changed everything. A week after Deion's explosive interview, something changed. Quietly, internally, but unmistakably. Shedeur Sanders was suddenly getting first-team reps in back-to-back practices. The same coaches who barely looked his way were now charting every throw. His name started popping up in media reports, not as an afterthought, but as a legitimate contender. Rumors swirled. Some said the owner stepped in after seeing the public backlash. Others claimed pressure from inside the locker room forced the coaching staff's hand. One thing was clear. Someone upstairs was finally paying attention. Then came the shocker. The Browns announced Shadur would start in their preseason opener against the Panthers. No explanation, no spin, just a single tweet. QB1, Shedeur Sanders. The internet went into meltdown. Fans who'd been demanding change finally got their wish. Critics, stunned. Supporters, vindicated. Even Deion, for once, didn't say a word. He just posted a picture of Shadur in a Browns jersey with one word: patience. But this wasn't a victory lap. This was pressure. Shadur wasn't just playing for a spot. He was walking into a storm he didn't create, but now had to own. The stadium was electric. Fans weren't just watching a preseason game. They were watching a statement. Shedeur Sanders jogged onto the field with the weight of the controversy, the pressure, and the expectations squarely on his shoulders. From the very first drive, he looked locked in. Sharp throws, quick reads, total command. And when he dropped a 40-yard dime into Jimmy Horn Jr.'s hands for a touchdown, the crowd erupted. Not just for the play, but for what it meant. This wasn't just about talent. It was about proof. The haters were still talking, of course. They said it was just preseason. That one game didn't mean much. But anyone watching knew different. This was Shadur saying, "I belong." Post-game interviews were filled with praise. Even the most skeptical analysts had to admit the kid looked ready. And while the Browns refused to commit to a regular season starter, the pressure was now on them to justify any decision that didn't involve Shadur. The battle isn't over. The noise hasn't stopped. But one thing's for sure, Shedeur Sanders just flipped the script. In just a few weeks, Shedeur Sanders went from an afterthought to the center of the Browns' quarterback conversation. What started as a whisper turned into a storm, driven by a father's fire, a fan base's frustration, and a rookie's refusal to back down. The Browns thought they could ease him in, maybe stash him behind the veterans, but Shadur didn't follow that script. He forced the issue with his play, his poise, and the backing of a spotlight far too bright to ignore. Now, the team faces a decision it didn't expect to make this soon. Stick with the safe pick or embrace the future staring them in the face? Because Shedur's no longer just Deion's son. He's no longer just a prospect with potential. He's become something far more dangerous, proven under pressure. And while the season is just beginning, one thing is clear. Whether the Browns are ready or not, Shedeur Sanders has arrived.